Ford equipment connection fittings offer more flexibility for mating deflected or offset end pipes in a flanged piping system. Achieve a watertight and secure seal with the FECF connection fitting by avoiding these common errors: insufficient lubrication, insufficient pipe insertion, incorrect mating flange, the slip pipe isn't centered, over-deflected coupling connection, dirt on the threads, bolts, or nuts, debris between the slip pipe and the gasket, over-tightened tie rod nuts, uneven or non-concentric coupling components, or the bolts aren't tightened to the correct torque. Before any installation, refer to the instructions packaged with your Ford product. Inspect and confirm that no components are damaged. Verify the mating flanges to ensure they have the same drilling pattern. Confirm the flange deflection, misalignment, or offset is within the tolerance that the FECF will accommodate. Unpack the connection fitting and loosen the coupling end ring bolts and nuts enough to allow the slip pipe to move freely within the flange coupling bodies. Ensure all components remain free from dirt and debris. Position the contracted FECF between the mating flanges and properly block and shim all components to ensure it remains evenly and concentrically spaced. Use the marks provided on the slip pipe to ensure it is centered between the flanged coupling bodies, and the minimum insertion on each plain end slip pipe into each body sleeve is 2.5 inches.
Well, right now we're at 28 inches roughly, so we should have plenty of fit for that. It's not too narrow. So another thing you want to check for is some offset and some deflection. So what I'm going to do is check this here, just for offset from side to side. We're within 1/8 of an inch of each other. And I'm going to check the top and bottom also, just to make sure, and I'm within 1/8 of an inch of each other there also. This gap, deflection, and offset, everything is within the acceptable range. We're going to be using the Ford meter box cap style flange gasket. They just easily just snap into place. They're designed to be snug so that they stay in place, and that way they're not just dropping off. I'm going to slide this up into place.
Insert flange gaskets between the flange faces. Install flange lugs behind the existing flanges using longer bolts and nuts to accommodate the full thickness. Maintain equal or symmetrical spacing between each flange lug. Install flange bolts and nuts through the remaining flange holes. Evenly and alternately tighten the bolts around the flange to compress the gasket until the recommended torque is achieved.
I'm going to put the extension plates on and bolt it together. Slip this through. Now these plates have a scallop at the bottom of them that matches the OD of the existing pipe that you're going to be attaching to. So there's not any extra interference with that. I'm going to put that in place, get the top and bottom, so I get those so that they're symmetrical. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the remaining fasteners on this side. I'm going to go ahead and get those in. I'm going to go ahead and put a little torque on this side so that I can get this pulled over and it's fairly snug. That way I can loosen this strap up so I can finish sliding the assembly over. Now I can slide this assembly over, rotate it into place. And one thing you're going to see that you want to be careful of when you go to slide it into place, that you just don't pull the whole slip pipe and everything out, and then it could potentially come loose. That's one of the things you got to be careful of, because this whole assembly, these end rings and everything, are going to be pre-lubricated when we ship them. Now we've got both of our fasteners in place. I'm going to push this up, take a lot of the slack out of it. Now I've got those in place. I'm going to finish putting the rest of my remaining fasteners in. Once again, I'm going to go with that star pattern, just to make sure everything is even and concentric, and not excessive torque in one area. So now, once we have this in place, we're going to go ahead and apply the torque to these flanges. And with ours, we have a click with it. We'll apply a couple rounds of torque. We prefer 3 rounds just to make sure. One round on that side. We're going to go to this side over here. Once again, using the star pattern. One round, we're going to go back through and we're going to do that 2 more times just to ensure that we have proper torque. As you can tell, coming back the second time, what I started with on the initial first round of torque has somewhat loosened up, and you'll see that. And by the time you get to the 3rd round of torque application, shouldn't see any slack develop. So now we're going to focus on the seal.
Begin tightening the nuts on the end rings while maintaining an equal radial distance around the slip pipe for a proper gasket seal. Then, tighten the end ring bolts in an alternating pattern to compress the gasket until 60 foot-pounds of torque has been achieved. Wait a minimum of 10 minutes and retighten again. Install the tie rods through the flange lugs and place a set of spherical washers on the back side of each flange lug. Attach a nut at each end and tighten finger tight plus 1/2 turn. Recheck the torque on the end ring bolts and flange bolts after pressurizing the line.
Our goal is to keep this center line between our end rings so that we have sufficient seal on both sides at this connection. So one other thing we want to make sure that we do is that we get these end rings so that they're concentric. We want to try to get where this gap is concentric, and it'll generate an even seal. I'm just going to use wood shims for my purposes. We want to tighten this in an even fashion using that star pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead, snug these up by finger tight real quick. Recommend just using just a standard socket. We're going to try to take this in fairly evenly, and once again, go with the star pattern. I've got this snugged up. Now I'm going to move over to this side, and I'm going to get this side installed before I apply the final torque on this one. I'm going to get this where that is concentric on this slip pipe. Now I've got that. Go ahead and okay. Now that I've gotten these snugged up, I'm going to go ahead and pull shims out of the way so that they are not impeding me. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start applying the torque to all of these fasteners. So we're going to use the symmetrical pattern as far as tightening. I'm not going to take it all the way to torque on one. I'm going to just work my way towards it so that I'm applying it evenly on that gasket so I can generate an effective seal. On these fasteners, once you achieve torque on these, if you don't have to go with the symmetrical pattern, you can just chase it around. But on initial install, you want to do symmetrical star pattern. Once you achieve the first round of torque, you can just go around it in a circular fashion. And that is finished on that side. So now we've gotten these tightened. I'm just going to go ahead, chase the torque here. Now we've achieved our torque here. We have achieved our torque here. We've generated a seal here at both end connections, also at the slip pipe. So now we've generated a watertight seal. The last thing we need to do now is we need to install our double end rods. So what we'll do is we'll install those rods. These washers have a spherical orientation to them so that if there is some offset and there is some deflection, these washers are going to be able to account for some of that deflection, and they will shift slightly rather than putting these lugs and this assembly in a bind. Those washers will take up some of that offset. And these you just want to snug them up. You can either do a figure tight snug, or you can just use a open end wrench and snug them up.
The installation is now complete. Ford equipment connection fittings provide flexibility to handle your most difficult offset or deflected flanged water line connections.